Go live button, so let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet. Before we go ahead and get started, we got to make sure the tubes are working, connecting themselves all across the Rumbles, the Twitters, the locals, the YouTubes, and it looks like we are connected. That means we can go ahead and get started, so let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we are talking about the 2024 election and how rigged it is, thanks to Judge Chutkan and the DC Circuit Court. Now, yesterday, we did go through the tweet thread courtesy of Brandy Buckman, but we've got some transcripts today, courtesy of Julie Kelly, and I want to go through them in a little bit more detail because what's happening here is actually quite horrendous. And this is something that I think is extremely indicative of the line that is being crossed. They just don't care anymore. The mechanics of the process are irrelevant, and they're just going to get what they want to get done, regardless of how they get there. It's Machiavellian. It's the ends justify the means. And so Julie Kelly has been an amazing source for transcripts and reporting on January 6th and all sorts of other issues. And so she got the transcripts from the hearing. I want to go through them in a little bit of detail. She hit the highlights, and so we'll unpack them before we jump in and see how this is all being used, right? Why are they doing this? Why do they need the trial to happen in March of 2024? It's because it's going to bog down Trump. It's going to keep him off the field, they say, or they think. We'll see if that actually happens. But they're going hysterical. We've got Christie who's saying, this might make my odds a lot better if he does go to prison. We've also got this guy saying that this is really going to cause Trump some headache. And Rachel Maddow is hysterical. She works one day a week now on Mondays. And so she's very upset about this, kind of hysterical, saying that America's over if Trump wins. It's over. So when they get like that, they'll do basically anything to make sure that they win. We've also got a fun clip from this person who is named Medhi Hassan. And he's kind of making a racial argument about this whole prosecution, which is strange because justice is supposed to be blind. But he kind of makes this argument that a black woman, Judge Chutkan, got the white guy, Donald Trump. And this is kind of a weird situation of him, to say. But Jordan Peterson came back and said, hey, buddy, you're Caucasian yourself. And he said, I'm what? I'm Caucasian? And yeah, it's true. Jordan Peterson brought receipts on that one. So we'll go through that. Pretty funny stuff. And then we have an actual black man, because we're going to learn that Medhi Hassan is not an actual black man, is called Byron Donalds, who is going to tell us about election interference. And so, we'll get into a spicy segment there. Should be fun. I was preparing that segment and I was like, oh gosh. All right. Yeah, well, it's true. It's true. We actually have an actual black man. I don't know if Medhi Hassan is very clear on what his race is. Jordan Peterson corrected him on that, so we'll have fun with that one. All right. Might get in trouble. All right, but we're going to carry on. We now know that Republicans are going to be moving to defund these various Trump prosecutions. There's a lot of them. 4 of them are taking place criminally now. And MSNBC put together actually a nice summary of all the different things that the Republicans are doing. And so I want to play about 2 minutes from that because they're excited about this. How dare the Republicans try to strike back against our weaponized, politicized prosecutions? We'll talk about it. We got this guy. His name is Clyde, Representative Clyde. He's actually introducing some appropriations riders, right? He's on the Appropriations Committee, which is where they fund everything. And so the thesis is they can defund the Fani's office. They can defund Jack Smith's office. They can cut and slash salaries for various people throughout the different roles. And so we'll go through that. Representative Clyde put out a press release, and he's not alone. He's actually been joined by others. A lot of people are talking about this. Matt Gaetz had some talk about this. Marjorie Taylor Greene did. And so does Lauren Boebert. Her office just confirmed that they were thinking about this today too. So we'll talk about all of that. Then we've got a letter to attend to. Congress sent a letter directly over to Merrick Garland, the United States Attorney General. They have questions just like we do about David Weiss. The big question, of course, is why did he get appointed to be the special counsel? We know David Weiss, in our opinion, is extremely conflicted. He's the person responsible for the botched plea deal that everybody thought was a total scam, including the judge. And they gave him a promotion? What? So we've got Jim Jordan, James Comer, Ways and Means, all sending a letter over to Merrick Garland. And then we'll check in with Gary Shapley, the IRS whistleblower, for some follow-up there. And then lastly, in our final segment, we've got new reporting that 5,400 emails now exist that involve Robert L. Peters. Isn't that nice? Robert L. Peters, a.k.a. Joe Biden, apparently sent 5,400 emails where his name was referenced in that. And we don't really know why that is. That's a lot of emails, man. 5,400? Woo! Yeah, that's a lot. It's like not a joke. Definitely not a joke. What could he possibly be doing? Well, we've got a clip from prosecutor Shokin who says, well, I think he was accepting bribes. I mean, wasn't he basically doing that when he threatened me? We'll click that. We've got James Comer reacting. He says, yeah, we've got our hands on some of these documents, 5,400 of them, but they are all redacted. We can't see what they were doing, obviously, because it would probably expose Joe Biden's criminality. Nobody wants them to see that. We've got Ducey time coming up. He's saying, you know, now that Hunter had his plea deal fall apart, who's paying his rent as he's living there in Malibu? And who's covering the Secret Service bill that is costing $16,000 or whatever it is for them being housed in Malibu next to crackhead Hunter? So we'll check out what Ducey has to say. And then Nancy Mace promises, we're coming for Biden. So we'll see if they do that or not. They've been saying that for a while now. We'll see. So as you can see, my friends, we've got a lot to get to today. We've got 5,400 redacted emails, questions for Merrick Garland about David Weiss, Republicans trying to defund the Trump prosecutions, and Judge Chutkan and the rigged trial that we'll unpack with even further detail because I'm so upset about it. But we'll go through all of that. My friends, if you'd like to join us at our amazing community, we have member-only streams in the morning where we talk about other stuff that we can't get to here due to time. We also check the dockets. We see what the president's up to. We've got a community movie night coming up this Saturday, V for Vendetta. If you haven't seen it, certainly check it out because we're going to post some discussion questions and unpack all of that. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com. If you're a YouTube member, you can join us for all of that stuff as well. We also have our new website, robertgovea.com. You can go there, sign up for the daily newsletter. We'd love it if you signed up. You could get the daily reports after the shows the next morning, boom, right in your inbox. You get a summary of everything we talked about so you don't miss anything. And you can also get access to this mind map. So if you want to navigate this mind map and actually get an insight onto what is happening here, follow the links, click the articles. I actually update the mind map before the show goes live. So if you want to, read ahead, what are we talking about today? You can get access to the mind map, robertgovea.com. Now, before we get into all of the deliciousness today, we got to make sure we eat our vegetables. And one way that we can lose some of those leftover pandemic pounds before we get to pandemic 2.0, eat healthy and ignore all of the other fads that are out there, right? We've all been there. We've all seen them. We've all tried them. We know they don't work. But you know what does? Eating healthy, especially healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. And imagine multiplying that times 5. Whew. You do that, the weight would probably just fall right off. But look, vegetables, not a fan. And fruit, who's got time to prepare that every day? Not me. Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. Now, Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, very specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you're going to look and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come at your next checkup when you walk into your doctor's office and he says, whoa, woo, you are looking good. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. And so let's get you started. Go on over to fieldofgreens.com and enter in code Robert when you get there. That way you can save your 15% off. And let's not forget, my friends, the vegetables, they want to be eaten. That's why they're here. Look how delicious they look. All right. Also, so we're going to check back in on our mods and meme smiths after the show. And so without any further ado, let's get right to it, my friends, because we've got some business to attend to. The transcripts are now here, and we can see exactly how far Judge Chutkan went to rig the trial for Donald Trump in 2024. Big questions about how Donald Trump's defense team is going to get through 12 million documents, which is about 10 Washington monuments of copy paper stacked from floor to the sky. 10 of them, that's a very tall building. How can they possibly get through it? Well, the judge, during the hearing, said a bunch of stuff like, well, they've already seen a lot of this, and it came from Trump's organization. You knew that they were investigating him, so why didn't you just start preparing your defense years ago? All of those types of arguments were used to justify setting a trial right in the middle of an election. And people like Christie are very excited about it. This guy, on whatever news station he's from, CNN, says this is going to bog Trump down, and he's not going to be able to campaign in ordinary fashions. Maddow is screaming about how if Trump wins, the country's over and he'll never leave office. And so we know they're flailing around like the T-1000 on the last scene of Terminator, gasping for air, trying to get out of the molten lava. And that's why they've got to do all of this stuff. That's why they have to bend the rules, shatter the precedent of justice to create trials that are without any prior precedent in American history for a case like this. Julie Kelly has the transcripts from the proceeding that took place in front of Judge Chutkan's courtroom. Her Twitter account is at Julie_Kelly too. If you're not following her, you absolutely should be. I mean, she's critical. If you're interested in the stuff we do here, she does amazing work. She says, I have a transcript from the Judge Chutkan hearing, and it's even worse than we knew. Chutkan marveled at Jack Smith's rapid discovery production and downplaying various other things. And pausing on discovery, remember, they've had years to investigate all of this. And the highlight that we saw yesterday was that the government, through Molly Gaston, was very organized. They had highlighters, sticky notes. They had, index cards organized alphabetically. Very beautiful. And that was justification to the defense not needing to review anything because it was so nicely organized. They said they even created a roadmap for the defense about the prosecution's theory of the case. Wow, that's incredible. So the defense doesn't need to do any work because the prosecutor that is, in my opinion, unjustly prosecuting Trump, they've done all the heavy lifting for you. Now, they also downplayed the fact that the Department of Justice could not name a single case in the D.C. district that went from indictment to trial in 5 months, not one. That was their request. They originally wanted this trial in January. Judge said, January is a little too soon, government. Don't be ridiculous. How's March sound? Trump goes, oh, you're giving us 2 extra months to go through 12 million pages of documents? And it's not just the 12 million, it's audio interviews, video recordings, all of the other spreadsheets and, technical printouts and blah, blah, blah. Insane. Here's the transcript. Says, okay. This is an excerpt, says, and the government hasn't identified any cases in this district where the length of time between the indictment and trial was roughly 5 months. Although they did point to the Manafort case in Eastern District of Virginia, which went to trial roughly 5 months after the superseding indictment. So that would be the second or third or whatever indictment that came out. The court says, this is the Judge Chutkan speaking, and we can see there, okay, the U.S. Department of Justice doesn't have any precedent at all. They've never had another case ever that they were able to identify that went to trial in 5 months, but they asked for 5 months for Trump. Why is that? Didn't Merrick Garland tell us that this investigation, this January 6th case, was the most intensive the Department of Justice has ever done? So why do they need to go so quickly for such an extensive case? Doesn't Trump have due process? Where are the prosecutors and the judges across this country speaking out about this? That the DOJ, that's supposed to swear an oath, they have stupid little badges and all the crap that they have, and all the rules and parties they go to and all these things, they always tell us that they adhere to justice, that they care about justice, not convictions. Where are they talking about any of this? Do they care at all? No. Most do not. So the DOJ shatters the norms because Trump, obviously, although they did point to another case in the Manafort case, which is a different jurisdiction, obviously not a president, and it's 5 months after the superseding indictment, which means we had a first indictment come. So I don't know how much time between the first indictment and the superseding indictment, so it's not even a good conversation. It's despicable that the DOJ would even ask for it, but they did. The court says, I'll note that many years ago, when I was trying murder and conspiracy cases across the street in Superior Court, and we got an update on this from our locals. I don't remember the background of Judge Chutkan, but apparently she was a criminal defense attorney before going into private practice. And yesterday, when we were reading through this, when I heard her say, I was trying murder in conspiracy cases, I was thinking, was she saying because she was prosecuting them, that language? And I didn't know if that was a rough translation or something. But it's an interesting thing to say. I would think that that's something that a prosecutor or a judge would say, not necessarily a defense attorney. But so she's a defense attorney saying, I was trying murder and conspiracy cases across the street, perhaps as a public defender. We got witness names on the day of trial and witness statements and grand jury testimony before the witnesses testified and sometimes after the witnesses testified. So this adds some clarity. So she's just explaining that when I was a public defender, I had to go quickly. I had to go very, fast. And I don't know what the context is or if she felt like she was doing a competent, capable job there, or that's ethical or whatever. We got witness names the day of trial and we just tried murder cases and you didn't interview the witnesses or know what they were going to say. You just figured it out. You just they're just throwing cases. Just because you went through it doesn't make it right, right? I've seen a lot of things in the practice of law that happen, but that doesn't make it right. Okay, it happens every day, but it doesn't make it right, doesn't make it lawful or the way that things should go. So I would have a real concern, okay, if that was my brother or my family member who was being represented by an attorney, a defense attorney, and that defense attorney got the witness name the day of trial. I'd be like, what? That's what's happening here? And judge, you think that's acceptable in your courtroom? Are you kidding? So that's justification because you went fast when you were a government defense attorney or working in the defense, that you can just say now that because you were disadvantaged that Trump's lawyers need to be disadvantaged or something? Doesn't make much sense, but okay. We got witness names on the day of trial and witness statements and grand jury testimony before they testified. And while the discovery rules here in federal court, this is Judge Chutkan speaking, provide far more disclosure in advance, the manner in which the discovery in this case, here it is. The manner in which the discovery in this case has been organized indicates that the government has made a considerable effort to expedite review, all right? This is a judge in America speaking. The Department of Justice organized their case well, so the defense doesn't need to do the work that the defense says they need to do. And let's just zoom out on this just to hear how reprehensible this is. We are in an adversarial system. We're supposed to be working against each other to win. This would be like a football team saying, you don't need to prepare for this because we've already told you what plays we're going to run, and you can just trust us to run these plays. So don't even prepare. And then we're going to come out to the field, and the other team is just going to say, well, we didn't prepare. We don't know anything about anything. We don't even know what place they're on. We have no evidence. We don't even know what the rules of the game are. We know nothing except what they told us. And then when the other team loses, they get blown out of the water. They're supposed to be shocked or something, or, this is a big surprise. This is obviously unfair. But the judge is pointing to this as saying they worked really hard to help the people that they're trying to destroy. It's crazy town. So she continues, Julie Kelly's reporting. She says that she confronted the judge, John Lauro, Trump's lawyer. There are 12 million plus pages of documents. Most of it's related to Trump. They say he must have reviewed it already. Here's what the judge says. All right, Trump defense. The point here, in other words, this is not brand new information, this discovery. Some of it are statements. Some of it are materials of your client's own creation. That's Trump's. In other words, none of this, you're not seeing this for you personally maybe, this may be new to you, but this is material that's been reviewed, at least for privilege. Some of this material are statements of your client and materials created by your client or entities associated with them. Why? That's not brand new information, is it? And this is the point yesterday where I almost jumped out the window. And we were just thinking, yes, it is brand new information because Donald Trump is one man and a part of a giant operation and a giant entity. And just because some other person created it doesn't mean that every single person automatically knows what's inside. Multiple lawyers have to review it all if they're all going to be up to speed on the case. Everybody's got to read the full book to understand how it ends. Not every lawyer gets to read one chapter and then assemble a book report. They've all got to read the full book to understand what happens. And so if they have 1,000 people who all know little bits and pieces because they scrape this data from this and this and this and the other thing, the judge says, well, somebody knew about it, which is essentially what she's saying. Well, it was created by the Trump organization, so somebody there knew about it. So why doesn't Trump know about it? It's absurd, really, is what it is. So it's not brand new. Lauro flips. Of course it is. Of course. To a criminal defense lawyer, it's brand new information. He made this point yesterday. That's like saying if the CEO of a public company was before your honor and had responsibility for running a company, oh, they've seen all the information that the company has. Why do they need time to prepare? They've already had it for years. Court says, no, that's a different point. Because it's information from the company doesn't mean that the defendant had seen it, but a lot of the material your client created, which I still don't know exactly what that means specifically. Okay, all right, Judge. How many of the 12.5 million pages were Trump truths or Trump tweets? How many? 1,000? How about that? We'll round up. We'll just call it 100,000. We'll call it 1 million. Okay, let's just say there's 1 million Trump tweets in there. That still leaves us with 11 million pages. So how much of that did Trump create? So, okay, we'll subtract 11 million. So we still need time for the 11 million. We'll take from 12 to 11 because Trump made 1 million tweets. We still need years to go through the rest of the 11 million pages. But she says, no, a lot of this material is material your client created or materials that your client's lawyers, maybe not you specifically, saw and reviewed and had possession of before this case. And that's where we get the end of that transcript. But Julie Kelly continues to report. And here's what the transcript says. Lauro keeps objecting, says, I understand the court, but Mr. Lauro, for one thing, okay, you suggest that the defense needs a substantial amount of time to investigate, for example. But the existence of the grand jury investigating in this case has been known since September 2022, almost a year. That's been public knowledge. So in other words, Trump should have known what a secret grand jury was doing and started to prepare his defense in anticipation of charges that he doesn't know whether they're going to come or if they do come, what they involve. So he's just got to be constantly preparing his defense. It's an absurd thing for a judge to even say. The identity of many of the witnesses who have testified in the grand jury and potential trial witnesses have been a matter of public record. So what? He had no obligation to start defending himself. And given that Mr. Trump likely knows most of the witnesses the government, or many of the witnesses the government would call likely, several of whom, according to at least page 7 of the indictment, may be staff and associates. So why would the defense need 2 years to investigate? You guys can do it in just a few months. The defense says, Your Honor, because there's no obligation for any American citizens to start conducting their own defense during a grand jury investigation and prepare for a trial when we don't even know what the issues are and what the charges are. The court says, well, there may not be an obligation, but, certainly a defense attorney, a good defense attorney, if you were a good one, knowing that their client was under investigation by a grand jury, knowing who the witnesses, some of the witnesses were in the grand jury, would already start, wouldn't they? Wouldn't you start if you knew it was coming? Right? Isn't that what a good defense attorney would do? Saying you're a bad defense attorney. Defense says, Your Honor, I was not hired during that period of time. The government never communicated, as far as I know, to President Trump's counsel regarding the theories of the investigation, the matters under investigation, the statutes at issue, the witnesses. None of that was ever provided. They could have done that. They could have said, yes, here's what we're doing, but they didn't, because they knew the judge would just let them get away with this. Kelly says, Chutkan keeps saying the case is not going to trial in 2026. Says, there's also, I don't think you're going to go through discovery page by page. A significant amount of this discovery is duplicative, so you're just going to flip through it. A significant amount of it you already have in your possession or know about. Okay, that's fine. It could be in their possession. Like they said they downloaded terabytes of data. It took them a full weekend. Then they had to get the hard drive sent over. So yeah, they're in possession of it, but it's just files. So they know about it. So what does this even mean? It's not the point about possession. It's not a point about knowledge. It's about processing it. And whether or not you, the defense lawyer, are seeing it for the first time, Mr. Trump has been ably represented by experienced counsel during the whole pendency of this investigation. This is not, it's not an unveiling, a surprise he's been indicted. You've known this was coming. Mr. Trump's counsel has known this was coming for some time. And I'm sure any able, diligent, and zealous defense counsel would not have been sitting on their hands waiting for an indictment. So she's basically almost threatening them now. Surely you don't need more time. You understand? You don't need more time to read all of this, because if you needed more time, then that would mean that you're being unethical. You're not being diligent. You're not being zealous. If you're requesting time for me, that means you were just being lazy these last couple of years when the government was rigging this all up to indict Trump during an election. You can just pick up right where you left off, because I know you're capable and you would never commit some malpractice, right? And you're not going to commit malpractice as this continues. Julie Kelly's jaw's on the floor. Obviously, that's a very appropriate reaction. Yeah, we feel you on that one, Julie. Chutkan continues to scold Trump's lawyers for not going through the trove. Defense attorney says, Your Honor, I doubt that. You can't push a button these days to get documents sorted. You have to go through the documents. No person who is charged with a crime should be in some way disadvantaged because they didn't do or anticipated what crime would be in connection with the grand jury proceeding. And they didn't do, or whether or not they did do any kind of research or examination prior to this charge. We start at the time of the charge, Your Honor. It would be highly prejudicial if Your Honor took into account any time before the charge was entered and suggest that the defense had some obligation to conduct the investigation prior to the time the charges were brought. So they should have hired a psychic to theorize about what Jack Smith was going to do, and then start preparing a defense for charges that are completely unjustified from their perspective in the first place. But they're also saying that Trump shouldn't be treated any differently, right? Are other defendants expected to do this? As she said, nobody's above the law. Everybody gets equal treatment, blah, blah, blah. No other defendants, this has never come up before. Hey, Your Honor, we need a motion to continue for this person you're representing on a DUI. Well, why do you need more time? Why didn't you start investigating this last year before they turned 21? Huh? Well, I didn't know. Well, you don't get any more time now. Your client's guilty. You know, it's like Looney Tunes. It's crazy. She says, I'm not suggesting you had an obligation. I'm simply suggesting you had an opportunity. But she's using the opportunity to justify giving them more time. So she's actually holding that against them. You should have looked into it further. It's really troubling that Judge Chutkan has done this. But what I think this indicates is that this train is off. Okay. I do not expect her to try to deviate this trial. This is a judge who has a mission, and they are going to be holding this aggressively. They're going to do everything they can to make this stick. Why? Because it's part of the long-term tactic. It's part of the long-term strategy. All of the Republicans are giddy about it. Democrats are thrilled about it. Christie says Trump's in big trouble. Other candidates are salivating, waiting for Trump to be taken off the field. Here's what Christie says.
You know, what matters is the truth. And you could say I'm attacking Donald Trump, and I understand that's the way some people would look at it. But what I'm doing is telling the truth about Donald Trump. And I'm unafraid to do so. And that's why I didn't raise my hand on the stage on Wednesday night, because the minimum bar we should have for someone to be running for president of the United States is that they're not indicted or convicted of felonies. Let alone the underlying conduct that is in the classified documents case, the January 6th case. These are acts that are just beneath the office he held when he committed those acts when he was president, and the acts that he's committed since he was president are well beneath the bar we should have for anybody who aspires to be president again. So what I'm doing is telling the truth to folks, and I'm doing it in the way I've always done it. Absolutely looking into the camera like I'm looking this morning and telling people what I believe in my heart and what I know from my experience as a prosecutor. This guy is in big trouble. He's in big trouble because he did it to himself, and he's inflicting that damage now on our party and on our country. That's not right, and someone needs to stand up against that. I'm the one who's doing it.
All right, he is a part of the GOP. He's going to be joined by Asa Hutchinson, and there are others, I think, who are going to join this contingent, right? I think you'll see maybe Haley jump on board. Certainly Pence is going to jump on board. You're going to see this fracture. We'll see what DeSantis does, but the GOP party itself is going to get on board, part of them, with this message. Okay, enough already. Trump's been indicted. He's been convicted if they can get it done. That's why he's got to go. And whether it's a brokered convention or whatever they try to plot, this is the framework that they're establishing. And we're going to see this come to fruition months from now. Now, this is over from CNN. This guy is really articulating what happens at a criminal trial. And unlike the other Trump trials that we've covered here, in particular the E. Jean Carroll case, when Trump was not present, that's because that was a civil case. And Trump could waive his presence there. There's no criminal liability there. It's just monetary damages. So because criminal charges might lead to incarceration, you've got to be there. Because if you're convicted, you're going into custody if it's a prison mandatory type of a sentence. So it's a different scheme. And now we see that if Trump has got 4 criminal trials back to back, then they may keep him from campaigning, from getting out there, visiting the various states. And if some of these trials are not televised, then a lot of this will be happening behind closed doors. We can't see it. So there's a downside. There's an advantage and a disadvantage, you could argue. Let's see what CNN says.
I think yesterday was a reality hit for Donald Trump's team. It is clear we're going to have one, maybe two trials between now and the election. When you're on a criminal trial, you have to physically be there as the defendant. We remember the E.G. and Carroll trial a few months ago. That was a civil case. Trump opted to skip that. He will have to be physically in the courtroom. It's a full day. It's a long day. Trials usually start 9, 10 in the morning, go to 4 or 5 in the afternoon. He will be in D.C. He will be in Florida. And so he will be physically off the campaign trail. And I think it'll be really interesting to see from a political perspective, how does that play? Because presumably he'll be getting wall-to-wall coverage, not the good kind when you're a defendant in a criminal case, but presumably he's going to get a ton of media coverage, but he's not going to be out there at rallies. He's not going to be able to go not door to door, but, shake hands with people and be mixed in with the normal type of campaign activity. I don't know how that's going to play ultimately.
It's going to be curious to see. I mean, some people, like we've seen on other networks, have said that Trump does not want this stuff out in front of the public. That's why he wants his Georgia case, for example, removed from Georgia into federal court. I'm not so sure I buy that. I think that if this was broadcast across national TV, I think that Trump, it would break everything. It would break everything. And for huge swaths of people to see what a joke these prosecutions really are, I think that they're probably more concerned about that than the opposite. Look at the reaction to the mugshot and how irritated they were. Can you imagine what we'll do with Fani Willis in a courtroom testifying or prosecuting Donald Trump? Oh my gosh. It'll be incredible. So this is what is happening. These people are orchestrating this. They are breaking glass in case of emergency. And it's because they have this mentality. And, I'd say I almost feel bad for Rachel Maddow. I really don't. But she's working 1 day a week now. And so I don't know what she's doing, spending most of her time on. But when she emerges from her theorizing or whatever, this is what we get. And the reason I'm going to play this, it's not because I want to make us all suffer through her, but it's because I want to just communicate where their mindset is at. Like, they think Trump is Hitler. They think Trump is the worst thing that's ever happened, and that if he wins, he'll never leave again. Even though it's like he won last time and he left. So what are you talking about? It's just people creating their own fictions and hyperventilating about this stuff on their news networks for their audiences. MSNBC allows this to happen once a week or so. Here's what she sounds like.
The election means one of two things, if this is the way he's going to approach it. Either he loses the election and he goes to prison.
Which I don't think is going to happen.
He wins
Secret
the election.
Service.
He doesn't go to prison. And is that for life that he gets to be president? Will we keep having more elections or no?
Well, no, he's got 2 terms. I mean, Trump has been the person who's actually adhered to the Constitution. Okay, he ran and campaigned in 2016 like Hillary, lock her up and all that stuff. Turned out that was just a bunch of campaign bravado, a lot of big talk. Didn't actually cross that line, cross that threshold. I would presume because some people in the Department of Justice talked him out of it. Maybe he should have crossed that line and actually done what the Democrats are doing. Maybe we wouldn't be in this position in this country we're currently at. But if he had done that, they would have been crying. They would have been flipping out about it. And really with good reason, because it would have been probably unnecessarily crossing a certain line that didn't need to be crossed, and we could all move on. But they didn't let that happen. The Democrats couldn't move on. They sabotaged Trump from day one with the Christopher Steele dossier, multiple impeachments, and they have no qualms about it. Nobody's going to prison on their end. Nobody's even apologized for the 51 so-called intelligence people, right? Everything is fake. Everything is rigged. They'll do anything that they can possibly get to stop this man because they're so deluded that he's this tyrant for which there's no evidence. He apparently was going to not leave last time. And he did, but she's regurgitating this. We already heard this last season, Rachel.
Every election is a new opportunity for him to go to prison. Do you think he allows us to have new elections? I mean, if those are the stakes, if winning the election is his plan to stay out of prison,
why did he leave?
What happens in that election if and when he does not win it? Does that kind of an election end with a graceful concession to a fair and square re-elected President Biden?
Nope. Nope.
I mean, if Trump and his supporters see the stakes as losing and going to prison or winning and being president, and probably president for life.
So that's the psycho part. Nobody ever thinks that. Nobody wants that. But she's right about that. Those are the stakes. She got that one dead on. Nobody's missing that one. We recognize that. That is the situation here. Because her side, her people, have made it that. They've weaponized the DOJ. They've weaponized the courts and these various prosecutions to protect their people and to prosecute the people that they dislike. So no, this is the consequence of wrecking the legitimacy of your institution. If nobody believes the DOJ anymore, if nobody trusts the FBI anymore, if everybody thinks Jack Smith is just a puppet of Merrick Garland and Joe Biden, which he is, then your verdicts and all of these efforts are meaningless. And when you come out and you tell us, just like all of the other institutions have done, CDC promised us this and Biden's DHS promises us that, and it's a nonstop thing, right? They tell us something, it's not true. So when they come out again and they tell us, no, election was perfectly free, perfectly fair, you're all liars again for the second time, nobody is going to buy it. Rachel's right about that. But the consequences are due to them eroding what used to be institutions that at least a portion of America relied upon. They wrecked all of that. COVID was the start. We're now seeing justice being treated like monopoly money. It's justice monopoly. It's stuff that is not even real. It's all just fake, transactional indictments, motions for filing. We're having court dates set. It's all just to get to an end, which is to prosecute Trump. And these people sleep well at night because this is how they think. This is what they do all day in their little social clubs. And then they come on their Monday show and rant like this.
How should we expect that he and the Republican Party and Republican officials in swing states are going to handle the conduct of that election that Trump may very well lose? And because we are prone to forget, we have to say out loud, I mean, that we would be remiss, we would be willfully naive.
Just say it. Just say it.
To ask that question as if our politics exists in a vacuum.
Spit it out.
Somewhere outside the rest of our news.
Just say it, for crying out loud.
As if the politics pages are totally different than the crime pages, right? As if we are not in a moment where far-right politics is coincident with far-right violence.
Okay, just
with regular shows
make your
of force from paramilitary extreme right groups and with acts of violence by people who are explicitly and admittedly motivated by far-right eliminationist political ideas. We are prone to forget, but we do not have to.
I think she's going to start crying there. So hopefully somebody has a box of tissues over there for her. So, all right. You know, she had to tell us that point, which I'm sure is all written out there on a nice teleprompter that she wrote, you know, took the last week to write on that. But these are the people, okay? They think that Trump is going to take over the country and he's never going to let it go. And so if this is your perspective, how can you not do anything to stop this, right? How do you not break all of the rules? Because this is do or die for them. And they are just going nuts. They're hysterical. Now, this is a funny exchange. Now, this guy is named Medhi Hassan. And I'm not going to presume what this guy's ethnicity is. It's a complicated thing, so I'm not going to make comments on that. But here is an exchange, his perspective, where he says that essentially Judge Chutkan, who happens to be a black woman, has exacted some sort of revenge upon Donald Trump. Here's what he says.
Donald Trump is a man with a long history of racism, one that long precedes his presidency and his political career. He has had a problem with people of color for decades. We know he especially has a problem with black people. And we know above all else that he has a real issue with black women, with strong black women.
Really?
Don't take my word for it. Take Donald Trump's.
What?
He led a chant of send her back against Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and even spread vile and racist conspiracy theories about her personal life. He called Vice President Harris nasty and disrespectful, and just this week mocked the way she talks.
She is nasty and disrespectful.
She speaks in rhyme.
Yeah, she says stuff like the USB ports on the bus go round and round.
It's weird. It's weird. But she has bad moments. And
in rhyme? What do you...
Well, the way she talks, the bus will go here and then the bus will go there because that's what buses do.
I love electricity.
It's weird.
I love USB ports.
He accused Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson of being disrespectful. There it is again. Towards the white GOP senators who were questioning her. And even his own former advisor, Omarosa Manigault Newman, wasn't spared. He called her a black...
All right, we get the point. Now, what's your point?
The fact that at the center of his many legal troubles right now are 3 strong black women.
Oh.
First up, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, who this week became the first prosecutor to get a mugshot of Trump and is now prosecuting him for 13 felony counts, including racketeering for attempting to overturn the 2020 election results. Remember, Jack Smith and Merrick Garland didn't insist on a mugshot for Trump in the 2 federal indictments against Trump in Florida and D.C. Fani Willis did.
Fani.
And despite Trump's very personal attacks on her and on...
All right, so let's get to the point about Chutkan. All right, pick it up. Here's his point.
Third, there's New York Attorney General Letitia James, who will be the first about his actions and conversations leading up to January the 6th, saying, quote, presidents are not kings and plaintiff is not president.
All right, there's a point to this because Jordan Peterson's going to blow him out of the water here in a minute. Hang on.
Sacrifices their strength, their activism, their votes. But this month in particular, we should thank black women for doing what a bunch of white guys have failed to do for years. Hold Donald Trump, hold a former president accountable for his alleged criming. And the fact that they're the ones doing it must be killing Trump.
Yeah, so black women are going after Trump and doing stuff that white men would no longer do. Okay, so these are the people who scream about racism in America, and this is how they talk. It's some of the most racist stuff we've ever played here, actually, about how different races should be attacking each other and prosecuting stuff, taking Trump out of context, as though he can't criticize people because they're black. He can't criticize women because they're black. Is that really what you're saying here? That's kind of nuts. It's pretty racist to say that. It's also pretty racist to say that these women are black and going after Trump and that race has anything to do with this. I thought that this was something that was about justice, not about race and ethnicity. But this is what they do on MSNBC. And I got to just share this with you because I was laughing my little caboose off yesterday. Jordan Peterson responded accordingly. This is the tweet that he shared when Medhi Hassan dropped that monologue on Twitter. Jordan Peterson responded. He said, you know, Medhi, you're not really brown, more like a light tan, just like, quote, white people. Plus, you're a Caucasian by definition, buddy. And that last buddy at the end got me there. Plus, you're a Caucasian by definition, buddy. Now, it didn't just end there. This is what happened next. So Medhi had a little bit of an exchange for him. And here's what happened. Medhi said, nothing to see here. Just Jordan Peterson, a white man, telling me I'm not brown. I'm actually white. Also, how am I Caucasian by definition? Curious emoji. Says Medhi. So Jordan Peterson responds, okay, well, you're not black. You're not Asian. What's left? Caucasian. It's not that difficult. And I didn't call you white, not that I care. I pointed out that your true color is tan, which it is, more or less like mine. And your idiot, a white man comment implying that I have no right to notice whatever the hell your color is not the least bit intimidating or damning as far as I'm concerned. Now, Medhi responds. He says, you know, India is literally in Asia, right? Where did you get your doctorate from again, Jordan? Jordan says, have it your way, you boring bloviator. I really don't care if you think you're green. Fine. You're not Caucasian. You're black or Asian or whatever you want to be, just like all you bloody progressives. For anyone who cares, here's what Wikipedia has to say. Citing to the Caucasian race on Wikipedia says, 19th century classifications of the peoples of India were initially uncertain if the Dravidians and the Sinhalese were Caucasoid or separate Dravidia race. But by and in the 20th century, Anthropologists predominantly declared Dravidians to be Caucasoid. Oh, man. So, after that entire race-baiting, black guy, white guy thing, all the things, Medhi Hassan is just a Caucasian. Just like me. Well, isn't that just a shame, Medhi? You learned something today from Jordan Peterson. Buddy? All right, so here is an actual black man, and somebody might want to alert Medhi Hassan to this fact. Byron Donalds, who actually can speak with some authority on that. This is Byron Donalds talking about Judge Chutkan being somebody who is obstructing the 2024 election.
Hunter Biden's the bad man, but Joe Biden is the actual big guy. And that's what you have here. Compare that with what they're doing in federal court and in Georgia with Donald Trump, where they have all these weird conspiracy-laden theories to bring indictments. This is nuts. And what this judge in D.C. is doing is worse because she actually is playing politics. To be honest with you, Maria, I've never seen a court move this fast to bring a trial. The only way I've seen them move this fast is if the defendant requests it. But that's not what's occurred here. She wants to interfere in this election, and she is using her courtroom to do it.
And she is doing it. She's doing it right now openly, not even really trying to hide it. Very bad justifications for an early trial. But because the left wants Trump removed, they don't care. Judges, prosecutors, other politicians, people who normally will scream at us about due process and justice are the ones wrecking it, rigging the trial, and thereby rigging the election. We'll continue to cover, my friends. Thank you for joining. Thank you for subscribing, as we do. All right. Now, let's carry on. We've got some response from Republicans. Are they going to do anything about it? We've got some updates. Republicans are now moving to defund Jack Smith, Big Fani Willis, and the other Trump prosecutions, and they want to do it through the appropriations process. We know Republicans are in charge of the House of Representatives, and so there are different tactics that people are talking about. Can Trump appeal? Can he go right up to the Supreme Court? Can Donald Trump maybe make certain defense arguments that would justify dismissals at early stage? There's a lot of different theories. Can we impeach the judge? Can Congress grant immunity for Donald Trump? A lot of different possibilities. But one tactic is to just defund everything, cut their salaries, slash the positions, make the offices no longer get federal money, and so on. One guy who is leading one effort is called Representative Clyde, and we'll hear from him along with Representative Boebert, who is also saying that when Congress comes back in session, when appropriations is back, they're going to defund these operations. Now, here's a quick summary about what's happening. This one is from MSNBC giving us an update. They are summarizing all of the various efforts from this guy.
A month to agree on a government funding deal or face a shutdown. Now, let's start with the fact that a government shutdown itself would not hinder Donald Trump's prosecutions. The Justice Department has said that criminal proceedings qualify as essential functions, and these essential functions continue even in the event of a funding lapse. So,
if funding lapses in September, criminal cases against Trump are going forward, so that's not going to be enough. They've got to go after other tactics.
What are Republicans trying to do instead? Trump allies in the House are trying to use government funding legislation to insert provisions that would defund or target the prosecutors that have indicted Trump. Let's have a look at what some of them are doing here. There's Congressman Andrew Clyde. He is from Georgia. He is promising to introduce 2 amendments in appropriations legislation that would block all federal funds going to Special Counsel Jack Smith, Fulton County DA Fani Willis, as well as Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. He makes no bones about the fact that this is about their prosecuting Donald Trump. He wants to eliminate their authority to prosecute major presidential candidates until the 2024 election is done. There's Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene, 2 staunch allies of Trump who about a month ago started calling for defunding the Special Counsel Jack Smith. There's Jim Jordan, the chairman of the powerful Judiciary Committee, who says says he wants to restrict politically sensitive DOJ investigations, at least impose limits into how those are conducted. He has also launched an inquiry into Fani Willis. There's Andy Biggs, who called yesterday to straight up defund Fani Willis's office, at least block federal money, which is what Congress has control over, going to her. His posts have been heavily promoted by Donald Trump on his social media page, who has, Trump has also all sorts of invective against the various prosecutors who have secured indictments of him. Let's have a look at what.
So that's a nice summary, I think, of what's happening. One guy who has a strong position in all of this is Representative Clyde. And he actually came out with a press release that we'll read through, articulating what he intends to do. And then we'll see what Representative Boebert also has to say, because Republicans are in charge of the House, and so they can certainly do this. But the question is, what happens when it lands over at the Senate? And is there any possibility of the White House keeping these defunding mechanisms in place in the bigger context of spending? This is Representative Andrew Clyde from Georgia.
But the penalty is the process.
Yes.
In what we're seeing right now. I mean, you've got 3 prosecutors, 2 state level, 1 federal, and what they're doing is these 4 sham indictments with 91 charges. And if this isn't election interference, then I don't know what this is. So we have to defund this at the federal level. That's what Congress does. We use the power of the purse to make sure that our nation abides by the Constitution. And that's what we're doing here. So these 2 amendments, one which would defund any federal prosecution. Now, that doesn't mean investigation. They can investigate all they want, but they cannot prosecute before the American people have their say in the matter, as to who is going to become the next president of the United States. And then on the
That seems pretty reasonable, doesn't it? Why can't the people just decide? We know that there were other decisions for other politicians about when they can prosecute, when they should not prosecute, because of, I think I hit the refresh button. I hit the refresh button. Don't you hate that? I was getting a little too manneristic over here. All right, so I forget the point I was going to make. Anyways, here is Representative Andrew Clyde.
Have their say in the matter.
That's the point. So elections, why can't the people just vote? Let us go to the ballot box. There's DOJ and other policies that say, when things are getting close to an election, we don't make any sudden moves. We don't make any big announcements lest we implicate the election. This is a pretty big one. And I know we're already in the middle of the election itself. Donald Trump has declared, we've already had debates, and they just keep indicting him. So he's saying we can just put a pause on that, okay? Keep the investigations going, indict him the day after the election if you want to, but don't interfere with the election.
As to who is going to become the next president of the United States. And then on the state level, it would deny all federal funding to any office, state or local office, that does the same thing, that prosecutes a major presidential candidate.
So pretty serious if they could actually get something like that through. Here are more details about what the program would entail. This is from Rep. Clyde's press release. He says, here is how it would work specifically. He's actively working on 2 amendments to the Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies, the CGS Appropriations Bill. That's going to be the fiscal year 2024, and it's going to specifically prohibit the use of federal funding for the prosecution of any major presidential candidate. So it's not only about Trump, it's anybody. And this might be a good rule, after this is over. Maybe we don't prosecute people who are running for presidential elections if you're a political opponent moving forward. Like, do we want to protect the sanctity of the elections or not? We're just going to let big fannies all over America just decide to prosecute people? One amendment would prevent taxpayer dollars from funding the feds, while a second would prohibit funding for states. He says, Fani, Jack, and Alvin intentionally brought 4 sham indictments. These bogus charges are intended to smear and take down Trump, and I've got serious concerns about this. So the House Appropriations Committee is expected to mark up the bill when members return to Washington in September. So Should be soon. We'll see if they actually do it or not. We do know that he's not alone. Lauren Boebert, representative, also is hinting at this. Washington Examiner says that they're going after salaries. They're talking about slashing amendments to the defense appropriations bill. So Lauren Boebert from Colorado, she plans to introduce several amendments to the Department of Defense appropriations bill, so a different provision, following through on a threat from hardline conservatives. She says that she plans on filing multiple amendments to use the Holman rule to cut the salaries of DOD officials. But I don't know does this relate to Trump? While a spokesperson for Boebert didn't go into detail on who she plans to target. So they're just cutting budgets all over the place, I guess. And I don't know that this necessarily applies to Donald Trump, but this is something that they're thinking about doing. And I don't really buy it, to be perfectly blunt with you here. They told us that this is what they were going to do when they passed that disgusting spending bill. And we'll see if anything actually goes through. But I do like the effort from Clyde. The idea that you can just defund the prosecution is one way to go about it. At least it's something. We'll see if they make any progress on it when Congress is back in session. I do hope you subscribe as we continue to cover. We'll see you on the next one. All right. And now we've got an actual letter from Congress, which is just another letter, I suppose, but we'll see if this one's any good. Congress now questioning Merrick Garland over his decision to appoint the failed prosecutor called David Weiss to special counsel. How does a prosecutor who botches the entire plea deal for Hunter Biden get a promotion? Well, if you're in Biden's America, that's what obviously makes sense. Congress is not happy about it. They sent a letter, Jim Jordan, James Comer, and the Ways and Means Committee over to Merrick Garland, who is the U.S. Department of Justice Attorney General, demanding to know why he made this bonehead decision. Then we'll hear from Gary Shapley, who promises us more is coming forward. We're just getting started on what is happening. So this is the letter from Congress. You see, drafted August 28th, going over to Merrick Garland, signed by our friends Jim Jordan, Jason Smith, and James Comer from Congress, three heavy hitters who've been on this investigation for quite some time. They say, "Dear Honorable Merrick Garland, Attorney General, U.S. Department of Justice." They say, "Hey, Merrick, our committee's Judiciary Ways Oversight, we're continuing our oversight and we're questioning your commitment to impartial justice and the truth of the statements that were made in response to our questions about old Hunter." Congress says, on August 11th, the department and apparently their unprecedented plea deal with Hunter fell apart after a federal judge looked at it. After that happened, you appointed David Weiss as special counsel over the matter that he just botched. Your appointment, Mayor, raises numerous concerns considering earlier statements from you and Weiss saying that Weiss already had the, quote, ultimate authority free of any political pressure to pursue the investigation where, when, and how he saw fit. Now, recently reported info raises additional concerns about the DOJ's unusual actions in this matter. And it suggests, Merrick, that the department under your leadership has been attempting to circumvent the rule of law in favor of Hunter, Biden, President Biden, and the Biden family. So given the extremely serious nature of these issues, our committees in Congress expect unfettered cooperation with our oversight from both you and the department. We'll see if they get it. So Congress says the department deviated substantially from ordinary course. Since the early days, the DOJ has deviated from its standard procedure. Whistleblowers, for example, tipped off Hunter Biden's lawyers about the storage unit search. The DOJ also allowed the statute of limitations to elapse for 2014-2015 charges, including felony tax evasion, filing a false or fraudulent tax return for 2014. And this is in spite of Hunter's lawyers' willingness to consent to an extension of the statute of limitations. Hey, we'll extend it so that you can prosecute us if you need to. Biden's Department of Justice just let it expire. These deviations took place while Mr. Weiss, with the full support of the department, oversaw Hunter Biden's investigation as U.S. attorney prior to receiving special counsel status. Whistleblowers who actively worked on the investigation have identified other deviations that are not normal. For example, the tax division suggested removing Hunter's name from the documents, including subpoenas. FBI headquarters tried to stop Hunter Biden interviews during the transition after Biden allegedly won. And Secret Service agents got a heads up. They never actually got to interview Hunter. That's not normal. Prosecutors at the office in Delaware prohibited the IRS or FBI investigators from even asking about or referring to the big guy or dad in witness interviews. Can't even mention Joe. Prosecutors at the Delaware U.S. Attorney's offices limited the number and the substance of interviews that they could conduct. IRS investigators were excluded from meetings with the defense lawyers. Prosecutors withheld a tax division charging memo about Hunter from the IRS investigative team. So the lawyers are hiding it from the investigators. The prosecutors and the tax prosecutors slow walked search warrants, and they instituted unnecessary approval processes to slow roll any requests that came in. Prosecutors also refused requests to follow up on incriminating WhatsApp messages between Hunter and representatives of Chinese companies. That's the "I'm sitting here with my daddy" message. All of these and numerous other deviations were the result of actions by the DOJ, and they occurred when Mr. Weiss, per your own admission, supervised the investigation. We also saw an unprecedented plea deal. In May 2023, around the time that the whistleblowers first talked to Congress about irregularities, we know that Hunter's lawyer, Chris Clark, and others began formally negotiating about a deal. So they just, they came up with the deal last minute. May 2023, whistleblowers stand up. Hey, we're blowing the whistle. They freak out. We better get this thing done. Weiss Deputy Attorney General Bradley Weisenheimer began formally negotiating with Hunter's team. Negotiations came to an agreement very quickly, June 20th, 2023. However, according to recent public reporting, Mr. Clark, Hunter's lawyers, began pressing the department to settle in spring 2022. Hunter's lawyer threatened prosecutors in the department that they would face career suicide if they pursued the investigation. Do you understand? Hunter's daddy is the president. Hunter's lawyer says that to other DOJ officials, career suicide if you even think about prosecuting the president's son. You have to be an idiot to do it. He asked for meetings with people at the highest levels of the department. He threatened to call President Biden to testify. Clark went so far as to tell prosecutors that they would be creating a constitutional crisis by pitting the president against the department he runs. They only care about that stuff if it's their guy. They don't care if they create a constitutional crisis at the expense of anybody else. The deal reached by Hunter's team and David Weiss, the so-called prosecutor, who is supposed to prosecute people, not cut deals for them, would have had Hunter plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax charges plus a felony gun diversion charge, meaning it would eventually go away. The unconventional agreement shifted broad immunity to benefit Hunter Biden with the aim of preventing the court from even being able to scrutinize the immunity provision. They hid it in an agreement that the court didn't review or shouldn't review. It also gave the district court the sole power to determine whether they breached it. Prosecutors could cite no precedent for anything like this happening ever. In July, under scrutiny from a judge, it became apparent that the parties did not agree to whether this document would shield Hunter. At the conclusion of the hearing, the judge expressed discomfort with the structure of the plea deal. The judge ultimately concluded, can't accept it. The department later dismissed these proceedings, then announced Weiss was appointed. So with all of this, with this failed proceeding, with this botched, corrupt prosecution, why did they appoint David Weiss? Congress says, hey, Merrick, It's not clear why you have only now, after the investigation has been going on for 5 years, opted to appoint Mr. Weiss as special counsel, especially after you represented that he already had ultimate authority. The only explanation you offered is that, quote, extraordinary circumstances now require the appointment. But the order also lacks any meaningful explanation. The department regulations, Merrick, as you know, require that you appoint special counsel with the following: with a reputation for integrity and impartial decision-making, with the appropriate experience to ensure the investigation will be conducted ably, expeditiously, and thoroughly. The regulations say you got to find somebody like that. But Mr. Weiss's conduct in this matter, overseeing an investigation that deviated from normal procedures, involving an unusual plea deal that disintegrated under judicial scrutiny, it calls into question Weiss's decision-making. Why did he allow that to happen? In addition, recent news reports indicate that Mr. Weiss, the prosecutor, so-called, had a close personal relationship with Mr. Biden's deceased brother, Beau, further undermining his impartiality. Isn't that curious? Footnote 35. What is that referencing? Hang on a second. What is that referencing? 33 is the headline. Okay. So 33, Washington Post article, August 20th, 2023. Before investigating Hunter, prosecutor worked with brother Beau. So isn't that fun? Isn't that interesting? That's why they kept David Weiss around. That's why they kept saying Trump-appointed prosecutor, is because he worked with Beau Biden. That's why he's been there. Additionally, your appointment of Mr. Weiss as special counsel suggests that previous statements made by you and Mr. Weiss about Mr. Weiss's authority were misleading or untruthful, lying. On March 1st, Merrick, you told the Senate that Mr. Weiss has full authority to bring cases in other jurisdictions if he feels it's necessary. But if that were true, then there would be no reason now to appoint Mr. Weiss to be the special counsel and to authorize him to prosecute federal crimes. If he had that ability then, why did you give it to him now? Weiss also changed his story several times. On June 23rd, Weiss wrote to the judiciary. He said, I've been granted ultimate authority over this matter. I can decide where, when, and whether to file charges. Not true. June 30th, Mr. Weiss changed his tune, claiming my charging authority is geographically limited to my home district. Wait, what? If venue for a case lies elsewhere, common practice is to contact the other U.S. attorneys, and if I can't get permission, which he didn't get, I may request special attorney status. So the Congress say to Merrick, they say, department pulled punches in this investigation. They handicapped veteran investigators, and they prevented them from freely pursuing the facts. The DOJ agreed to an unprecedented plea deal after his lawyer threatened to call his daddy as a witness. Now you have appointed a special counsel as an individual who oversaw all of these irregularities, and for the past 2 months claiming he didn't even need it. He's responsible for the collapsed plea deal, something viewed as an embarrassment for your department. It is. In light of Weiss's record leading this investigation, we have concerns about his appointment. So to advance our job as legislators, here's what we need from you, Merrick. All documents and communications referring to David Weiss's appointment as special counsel, any additional scope memoranda, directives, or instructions from the office relating to Weiss's appointment. Please provide these no later than September 11th. The Supreme Court has found that we may examine any matter at any time with our broad and indispensable power. Thank you for your prompt attention to this matter, Merrick. Signed, sincerely, your friends, Jim Jordan, James Comer, Jason Smith. Over from Congress. So, certainly very good questions. And you see just how corrupt this whole thing was. They just started to accelerate the plea deal when the smoke started to emerge, and they tried to cover it up. But there is going to be more that is revealed. We know there are 5,400 letters now, apparently, with Joe Biden's fake name on it. And Gary Shapley says there's going to be more people who are speaking out about this stuff in time. This is IRS whistleblower Gary Shapley.
Right?
That's right, Maria. I was in that room, and it was so important. I asked him to repeat it. There are witnesses in that room that I have provided their names to. They've received subpoenas now because they were unwilling to cooperate voluntarily. And that's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for to bring as many people forward that have information about this, so that it's not just me sitting there. It's not just Special Agent Ziegler sitting there telling you what happened. But that's why I documented that meeting that day, October 7th, 2022. I sent the email to executives over me, one of which was there, and they corroborated that that's exactly what happened during that meeting.
So what are your thoughts in terms of what went down? And what about David Weiss being special prosecutor now? Special counsel?
Look, to answer your question about David Weiss being special counsel, you just have to look at what he allowed to occur during this investigation. There are key witnesses we weren't allowed to interview, that we weren't allowed to ask all the questions of certain people we interviewed. People were tipped off that we were coming before the day of action. There were enforcement operations, to include search warrants, where a probable cause was agreed to by the prosecutors that weren't allowed to happen. And then you look, he played his cards. Now moving through to his letters to Congress, through Attorney General Garland's testimony in front of Congress, that it is not accurate what they said. And, and part of it is DOJ will continually say their first talking point is a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney is in charge of this case. That's not what happened. In March of 2022, David Weiss and the prosecutors went to D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office of President Biden-appointed U.S. attorney. He turned them down. Weiss confirmed that October 7th, 2022, again. In September, he went to the President Biden-appointed U.S. attorney in California. They turned him down. And then the information that was released last weekend, which is very important, it shows that Weiss was even considering not charging in January after those two President Biden-appointed U.S. attorneys declined to bring charges there.
Right.
So, it's just, it requires people to come in and to testify and for Congress to get to the bottom of this.
I want to know what you're looking for in terms of what you want to hear, corroboration, because I find it odd that as an IRS investigator, you can prosecute taxes not being paid on income, but you're not investigating where the income actually came from. I want to get your take on what you saw in all of that Hunter Biden tax return information. And we're talking with Gary Shapley.
All right, so that's an interesting exchange. Shapley obviously very frustrated that his former colleagues are lying through their teeth at all of us. And we're learning more about this. I know that it's a slow motion event, but I think that as more stones become unturned, more evidence will come out, and they're going to have a very difficult time denying it. All right, so we've got one final segment here before we wrap it up, my friends. And this one is some fun stuff. 5,400 emails apparently exist, all involving Robert L. Peters. Who is that guy? That's our president. That's his pseudonym. That's his AKA. When he was committing crimes, he didn't want to do it under his own name, so they created a pseudonym. And the archives, the National Archives, apparently have a bunch of them on record, but they are redacted and we can't see them. But maybe Congress will be able to uncover them. From Just the News, the National Archives, they acknowledge 5,400 pseudonym emails. And they're being sued for their release. All connected to then VP Joe Biden's pseudonym accounts. And he used this account to forward government information and to discuss business with his son, Hunter. And others. On Monday, the Southeastern Legal Foundation filed a lawsuit to compel the agency, the National Archives, to turn it over. We're very familiar with NARA. Deborah Stidel Wall, the same person, in my opinion, who colluded with the Biden administration to make what Trump did technically illegal and then launched the FBI after him. The nonprofit legal group that filed the lawsuit said the archives confirmed that Biden used the pseudonyms of Robin Ware, Robert L. Peters, and J.R.B. Ware during his time in the Obama administration. The archive's admission confirmed years of reporting from Just the News about the use of the personal email as VP and the pseudonym accounts. And the foundation first filed a FOIA request to the archives in 2021 on behalf of John Solomon and Just the News. They renewed its initial request last year, but the archives have failed to produce a single one of the emails. But the lawsuit's going to turn up the pressure, and other groups like the Oversight Committee and others are trying to get access to the documents. And of course, we're going to see James Comer react to that. But why, oh why, would Joe Biden need a fake name? Well, it's because, as Victor Shokin, the prosecutor who was fired at the behest of Joe Biden, he was taking bribes. Shokin, the prosecutor who is no longer a prosecutor thanks to Joe Biden, threatening to withhold $1 billion of aid, confirms that.
Do you believe that Joe Biden or Hunter Biden got bribes?
I do not want to deal in unproven facts, but my firm personal conviction is that, yes, this was the case. They were being bribed. The fact that Joe Biden gave away $1 billion in U.S. money in exchange for my dismissal, my firing, isn't that alone a case of corruption?
It certainly feels like corruption. Using a pseudonym feels like corruption. Paying Hunter Biden $83,000 a month feels like corruption. And so why else would he need a fake name other than to hide from his criminality? And there's a lot of fake names out there, my friends. One way to stop some of those fake names from calling you is with our friends at Aura. That's a live stream privilege. We'll carry on. We've got now James Comer says that these fake names exist. He's seen the documents, but unfortunately, the National Archives has redacted huge portions of them. And they're going to continue to go after them to see if we can see what's behind those dreaded black boxes.
Chairman of the House Oversight Committee is James Comer, and he joins me now. Congressman, why would Biden use pseudonyms? Any idea?
That's a great question. Why would he set up with his family 20 shell companies? Why would they be receiving payments from foreign nationals from Romania, China, Ukraine, and Russia? You know, these are questions that every American should have, and that's what our investigation of Joe Biden's all about.
Have you got access to the unredacted documents from the National Archives showing these pseudonyms?
We have requested the unredacted documents, and it's very important because we believe there may be some redactions as to who was copied on those emails where Joe Biden was using a pseudonym, particularly in the case of Ukrainian policy, Stuart. So this is of the utmost importance to our national security. Not only was Joe Biden using pseudonyms, he was copying his son on some of those emails that pertain to Ukraine when we had, prior to the pseudonyms becoming public, a transcribed interview with Devin Archer, who was on the board of Burisma, the corrupt Ukrainian energy company, along with the president's son. He testified that the owners of Burisma were squeezing Hunter Biden to call Washington to get help to fire the prosecutor, Shokin, who was investigating Burisma for corruption. So along this same time period, we found a pseudonym where he copied Hunter Biden. And it would lead one to believe that this was Joe Biden's way of copying Hunter Biden to say, okay, send it to the Burisma owners and tell them help is on the way. And 5 days later, Joe Biden flew to Ukraine to begin the process of firing the prosecutor in exchange for American tax dollars in the form of foreign aid.
You have a wealth of information right there. But look, it seems likely, it certainly seems possible that there will be a government shutdown. Would that interfere with your investigations?
Well, I don't think there'll be a government shutdown. Obviously, we're having lots of internal discussions now with respect to how to fund the budget over the next 12 months. I hope that we can agree on some cuts. I hope that we can agree on holding certain bad actors within our federal government accountable. But at the end of the day, that's a decision that it looks like the Republicans are going to have to make as a whole, because we're not getting any help from the Democrats. They want to continue to spend in oblivion. So, but I'm optimistic there won't be a shutdown. But any type of shutdown would, Stuart, interfere with our investigation. Any excuse the Biden administration can give not to be transparent with the House Oversight Committee, they're going to take that.
Congressman James Comer, thank you very much for being with us today.
All right, so they're not shutting anything down. They just lifted the debt ceiling to like $1 gajillion. There's like no limits until after the election because our Republican leaders are morons. All right, so that's James Comer. The head librarians at the National Archives, including Deborah Steidel-Wall, they've redacted the documents, and I'm sure they're doing it for national security reasons or to protect personally identifiable information or whatever their stupid justifications are. B6, B7, whatever the redaction codes are. We can't see it because it's too dangerous for someone else to know what's inside. Yeah, right. We'll see if they get to the bottom of it. Now, meanwhile, we know that Hunter Biden is back in Malibu, California, and he's staying at a pretty nice place. You know, he's got all that artwork money. He's an artist now. He somehow evolved from mucus, moldy milk COVID paintings into some paintings that look pretty good. I'm kind of curious who the actual artist is on some of those. But you see the giant scam is still well underway. And so he's now back in Malibu. And now the question is the Secret Service also living in Malibu? And who's paying for their $16,000 a month expenditures?
The Secret Service is paying $16,000 a month now to stage near Hunter Biden in Malibu. Who's paying for that?
That's a question for the Secret Service.
Okay, Hunter Biden is reportedly selling art to pay for his $15,800 a month rent in Malibu. How can you guarantee that people are not going to be buying this art to gain favor with the president?
That is a question for Hunter Biden and his representatives.
I
know. I hear your
Art
question.
buyers got a job from the Biden administration. Can you guarantee that there is no quid pro quo?
I hear your question. I'm not going to get involved in this. That is a question for Hunter Biden's representatives.
But we know that from a Hunter Biden associate now that he sold the appearance of access to then Vice President Biden.
True.
Are you confident that he has stopped doing that?
That is a question for Hunter Biden.
If somebody is selling the appearance of access to the White House, that is a question for the White House.
No, that is your I don't know how you're perceiving that.
It's sworn testimony by Devin Archer. He said,
I am just not, Peter. I'm just not going to get into this. I'm just not.
So, this testimony since the last time that I was in here, Devin Archer talks about how he and Hunter Biden tried to profit off the Biden brand. What is the Biden brand?
I'm not going to get into it from here. I'm not going to get into it from here. We're going to move on. Go ahead.
Thanks, Corrine. Thanks for nothing. All of those are very good questions that definitely implicate the Biden White House, and she can't even say anything. Just doesn't want to respond. So, feeling the pressure over there at the White House, Nancy Mace, House of Representatives, says we're coming for Joe Biden. Just hang on tight. Coming soon.
Regards to the investigation we're going to be conducting. And it's time for Joe Biden to start telling the American people the truth. Why wasn't the White House on any of the Sunday shows yesterday? Why will they not answer the questions? Why does Joe Biden avoid the questions? And when he does answer them, he's lying to the American people. And I think the American people just deserve the truth and nothing but the truth.
And did anything Shokin say to Brian Kilmeade surprise you? Did it add anything to the story?
Well, certainly having his testimony or his speaking to Brian Kilmeade in Fox News, sharing that information is very important. I want to talk to Victor Shokin next. I would like to see evidence that he has, aside from Joe Biden saying on a microphone several years ago, bragging about firing Shokin. I would like to see if he does have any evidence of this, because every time Joe Biden has answered this question, he's lied about it. And because the Oversight Committee is not allowed to show the suspicious activity reports from the Treasury because they're confidential, we've got to go after bank records. I would like to know what banks we need to be talking to, what banks we need to request financial records from, so we can show the American people what's actually been going on.
I always remember that when, was it last February or so, I think that it was, that you and a couple of others went to the Treasury Department and you got to see documents and you came out, and I think that you
it's fair to say you were shocked.
Yeah, we played that.
And
clip
is that what
here.
you're trying to say? That like, you're not allowed to show that to us, but you're trying to say that maybe if you go to the bank records and you're able to get those, we would get the same information that you were able to see?
Correct. Correct. I would say that. And I would say the shock and awe comes from the amount of money laundering that we're talking about is staggering. And I've said this a couple times. The amount of money that Biden's, I believe, benefited from is going to be over 50 million, 17 million from Ukraine alone so far. It'll be much higher than that overall when we talk about Romania, China, Russia, etc. Just one report in one of the SARS reports, and there were 170 of them plus, 170. Was tens of millions of dollars and then some. Like, it's a staggering amount of money that we're talking about between the Biden family and their business associates in these corrupt countries. It's insurmountable, in my opinion, and I'm disgusted that the mainstream media has not investigated it.
They're not. They're just going to continue to cover it up because it's their guy. Trump is the worst. Trump did much worse things, Jared Kushner and all the things they keep screaming about. So 5,400 redacted emails. There is a treasure trove of information out there about the Biden crime family. They just got to find it and crack it open. Once they do, the floodgates will probably start, and there'll be some serious questions about whether they have to keep him on the ticket or not. But, of course, we're going to continue to cover it, my friends. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for joining us as we continue to cover this, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, that is it from us on the day. 5,400 redacted emails. Congress questioning why Special Counsel David Weiss was appointed at all, given the fact that he's corrupt and terrible at his job. Republicans moving to defund the Trump prosecutions through the appropriations process. And Judge Chutkan makes our skin crawl with her horrific justification for shattering judicial precedents in the D.C. Circuit Court. Now, my friends, it is time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about this over from our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We've got an amazing community over there. And a little bit of a show note before we get out of here. Tomorrow, I am fully expecting we're going to do an interview tomorrow with Garrett Ziegler from MarcoPoloUSA.org. He's in town. I said, brother, can you come over here and let's squeeze out an interview? It's going to be a rough cut, whatever we do. But he's going to be here tomorrow, and we're going to try to squeeze that in. So tomorrow will be very likely an interview rough cuts, right? So we're just going to do a live stream. We'll cut it up and splice it and make it all look nice later. But that's basically going to be the plan for tomorrow. So that's the agenda. So don't want you to miss that. Should be at the same time. He's going to come by before he goes off to the airport, and we're going to try to squeeze that in. So it should be fun, a little bit different. We'll see how it goes down, but don't forget to join us for that. So watchingthewatchers.locals.com is where we do a lot of other fun stuff. We did another one of these interviews for members only with my friend Sanjeev Javia. And so that's going to be published on our channel later as a sort of a longer form interview. So we're trying to do interviews and increase some of the stuff that we do here. Super excited to have Ziegler come by. Same time tomorrow is when we're going to plan on going live. So watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We're going to jump into your questions. Our website, robertgovea.com. Great place to sign up for our daily newsletter. And I appreciate you forwarding those newsletters. Forward those to people who you think need to come and join us. All right. Yesterday, we had a couple of donos that came in a little late, and I wanted to make sure we didn't skip over these. We had yesterday, Indoctrination says, one of your better shows. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you, Indoctrination. That was from yesterday. Yesterday was a spicy one. I appreciate that one. And Tree Bark says, Rob, from yesterday, Rob, my wife thinks I got a man crush on you. No worries, I don't. I just think you're the man. Well, thanks, Tree Bark. And shout out to your wife, It's important to double check those things sometimes. But no homo at all. I know, we can say that we love each other. And, I tell a lot of dudes that I love them because I do love them. You're the man, Tree Bark. Thanks for saying that. And shout out to your wife. We got Not Brandon says, it's the 230 limit self-imposed or a locals deal, and damn, looks like bicep day went off without a hitch. Yeah, it's the 230 limit self-imposed or a locals deal, and damn, looks like bicep day went off without a hitch. I think I did biceps today, actually. I did. That was yesterday. Thank you, Not Brandon. All right, and so that was over from our friends on locals yesterday. Today, shout out to Pookie's Ma, says, thought you guys might get a kick out of this. Floridians are ticked. Bring our hurricanes back. Oh, my goodness. So, yeah, this morning we paused and said, thoughts and prayers for our friends out there on the East Coast in the United States. I do know that there is a serious weather coming through there. And so we're praying for you guys. Hopefully you're all buckling down and getting prepared for that. But Pookie's mom shared this story. Says Publix stops selling hurricane cakes, saying it will not make light of a natural disaster. But Pookie's mom's in Florida and says we want our cakes. So is this a Hurricane Florida thing? Is this like a cake thing in Florida? I don't know if this is like a thing. Like, do you guys get cakes when you're about to be obliterated by a hurricane? We don't get any weather in Arizona, okay? We don't even know what rain looks like. So we don't have hurricanes. We don't have anything like that. So so it's like a tradition, like everybody like gets a cake and like hunkers down? That sounds interesting. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, it looks delicious. So thank you, Pookie's mom. Doctors here says, slept on this. Isn't each juror required to look at every piece of evidence placed into evidence? Not really. How are they to do that if the lawyers clearly cannot in Trump's DC case? So, yeah, on the 12 million pages, they're not going to introduce all 12 million pages as exhibits. And no, jurors aren't really required to look at every piece of evidence. I mean, jurors just do what they want to do, really. You can't make them look at every exhibit. They can look at the exhibits. They can pay as much attention as they want to whatever, or not pay attention. So, good to see you, Doctor. Vientikis in the house says, one of many things people misquote, Machiavelli said that one must consider the ends when justifying the means. It's pretty interesting how in changing only a few words, people change an idea from a warning about lasting effects to a slogan promoting instant gratification, from Vientikis. We got Jameson says, ex parte McCardle is a case to review. Sounds like a good one. Jameson, not familiar with that one. Aha says, Kyle Rittenhouse is being taken to court in a civil suit. Having you explain the court documents would be a great show. Thanks. Man, I heard about that. Kyle Rittenhouse is just, is this his first one or second one? I thought he's gotten sued before. Yeah, I'll keep it in mind there, Aha. It'd be good to, we are so overwhelmed with Trump stuff, with Trump and Biden stuff. It's very hard to squeeze other stuff in, which is why it's good to become a member, which you are, which is where we can oftentimes hit that stuff. So maybe we'll hit that in our members only stuff. Yeah. Or we can change it up here. We'll talk about it. But Aha, good to see you. And Aha is bringing in 5 new members. Viva Maga says Rackets did a good breakdown. So Nick Ricada did a good one. Aha bringing in 5 new members. Thank you, Aha. Eurowars, Seeing Red, Tara Rayner, Dark Energy, and TJ Hartley coming in courtesy of Aha. Thank you, Aha. Very generous of you. And great comment on that one. We got Catherine Rex says, this transcript makes me sick to my stomach. Catherine Rex been a member for 2 months. You're right about that. It's like, it makes my skin almost crawl. It's like, oh my gosh. And yeah, it's reprehensible. It's very, very, very reprehensible. Swear jar, speaking of that, from Rocky Water. I think we all needed that today. Economath says, Joke Chutkan, the defendant will swallow the government's poison pill and he'll like it. Pay no attention to the exculpatory evidence that's buried and unhighlighted. Yeah, so the government, they're very nice. Molly Gaston from the Department of Justice is just a great prosecutor. She really cares about making sure the defense has the evidence they need to do their job. That's why she organized it all for Trump. Oh, thanks, Molly. Aren't you the person that wants to knife him in the jugular veins? Oh, thanks for your help. Rocky says, I'm too stunned for comment. I need a minute. Bless your heart for spreading the word and helping the cause, Rob. I know, Rocky. It's pain. This Judge Chutkan stuff has been some of the most painful stuff ever, because she knows better. The DOJ knows better. Everybody in that courtroom knows better, and they're all doing it anyways. It's like those rioters, they just walk into like these department stores and just take everything, and you're like, these are disgusting people. Wow. That's kind of how I feel about what's happening in the court. And it's a shocking thing because I want to revere the courts. I really do. I want to revere the logic of the law. I cherish the Constitution and the law. And to see people just dumping all over it, it makes me sick. All right. Rocky Water, I know you hear me on that one. Voice says, oh no, Orange Man can't campaign. He doesn't need all the eyes. He doesn't need to. All eyes are on this, and that's all he needs. People are seeing the lies on a massive scale now. I think you might be right about that, Voice. Like, it might backfire again. They said that the mugshot was supposed to intimidate and demoralize his entire campaign and show everybody what a criminal. Didn't do that. I think the same thing is going to happen with these trials. Personally, I think that they would rather see it not televised so that they can keep hiding under the dark of night, which is what they do. They scurry around in the gutters of the Department of Justice. Thanks, Voice. Tara Rayner says Trump had the country's back. Time for a return. No doubt about that. We'll see. We'll see. We're going to keep pushing for it. Voice says, with all the projection we've seen with Orange Man, I'm willing to bet they will try to remove term limits soon because they are scared Trump will do it. Remove term limits on what? The president? Well, if they remove term limits and Trump wins, then I guess he could just keep running. So that might be a little bit more than they can bite off. Or maybe like remove term limits so like Obama could run or something like that. I don't know. NY says so talking about Medhi, he isn't an American, he's British and not a citizen. Guess where he's going to be going in 2024? I mean, you mean to vote at the polls? Probably voting for Biden is what I'd say. 1R5's over on Rumble. Shout out to our Rumble friends. And thank you, 1R5, being a member and the nice dono. Question here says, is found guilty in a court of law the same thing as found guilty in a court of politically motivated, perverse mutant goblins? Just wondering. Well, for the current court system, I don't know that there's a difference between the two. So yes, I think that in the DC courts, it's basically the same thing. You've identified the official name. They identify, here's what's happening, yeah. In Washington, DC, they identify as a court of law, but they are not really a court of law. In fact, they're a court of politically motivated, perverse mutant goblins. That's how we identify them. Just wondering. Yeah. So a lot of overlap there. Good comment, 1R5. Magic Stick Seeker says, I can't stand Rachel Maddow. They're all mad cows. They're all so dramatic. They're all so dramatic. And she says, did you hear how long it took her to make a point? I have to say this. I'm so conflicted, but I have to say it to save America, to save democracy, to prevent this from happening. I don't know. Just say it. Gosh. All right. Rocky says Byron should initiate impeachment hearings on the Supreme Court justices based on Chutney's interpretation of the 14th Amendment. Judge Chutney. Yeah. So do you mean on the district court justices? Or do you think Byron Donald should take out the current sitting Supreme Court justices? Force the Supreme Court justices to take action. I see. So you just kind of put them on the spot. You guys got to do something about this or you're impeached. Interesting tactic there, Rocky. We'll see if anything like that happens. Quantum Thug Life, thugging it out in multiple dimensions. Bringing in 5 new members, Diane H., Clinton G., So Vic. We got Rocket Fiend, Nikki P., all coming in. Welcome aboard, our friends. Thanks to Quantum Thug Life, 444, interdimensional thugness. John McGarvey says the metal detecting is going to be lit after Adele. John, that's too soon, John. We don't know what's going to happen there. So hopefully there's no need for any of that. It just turns into a nice little pitter-patter sprinkles when it crests. And everybody says, wow, this is a nice breeze. It's nice to have some weather. And then it moves on peacefully. We've got another one from F the Magician says, only way Trump could have overturned election results is if examination of ballots and machines proved fraud. I don't even know if they would have accepted that. So like, okay, let me finish. When libs claim he tried to overturn 2020, aren't they claiming fraud? Aren't they admitting fraud would have been found? So the big holdup with all, so like there was certainly fraud, right? Like nobody doubts that. They moved the goalpost multiple times. So it went from there's no fraud to there's no widespread fraud. Then it went to there's no widespread fraud that what? Affected the outcome of the election, right? They just moved the goalposts. So there was no fraud, there was no widespread fraud, but it didn't affect, okay, maybe there was widespread fraud, but it didn't impact the outcome of the election. And so the investigation of fraud or even finding fraud wasn't itself sufficient. You had to have enough fraud that was in a big enough margin that would have changed the outcome. And they couldn't get that really the last prong of that, which is what made the whole 2020 election litigation so frustrating. John Allen in the House says, Rob Jeegum had an excellent question I wanted to get your thoughts on. Says, serious question, the people have standing. At what point does the Supreme Court need to take these cases, all of them, against Trump? Well, somebody needs to bring it to the Supreme Court. So, one way you could do that would be, for example, we talked about like interlocutory appeals this morning. On our members only stream this morning, we talked about interlocutory appeals and what might constitute justification for an appeal outside of judgment. So like one theory would be Trump loses on January 6th. So we all don't have standing in the Trump cases, right? Trump is being prosecuted. We can't file. I mean, theoretically, you could file whatever you wanted, but I don't think the Supreme Court is going to say that you have standing because Trump is being prosecuted. So like something needs to trigger in order to get the Supreme Court involved. Some basis for an appeal. They're not just going to come in and say that what's happening is problematic and just say that, prosecutions shouldn't be happening. So you'd have to basically attack the law. You'd have to find something in the law. So one example would be if Trump let's say Trump is successful in removing his case from Georgia to federal court. And in federal court, Trump claims immunity. But the federal court says there is no immunity for federal immunity. I think at that point, Trump could immediately appeal to the Supreme Court or appeal that up to the 11th Circuit and then appeal that up to the Supreme Court. So there needs to be something that we latch onto that gets us there. Somebody's got to sue. Trump needs to lose something. We talked about Trump appealing this trial date and the trial discovery order this morning. And I don't think that that's going to meet the interlocutory appeal threshold such that Judge Chutkan is going to certify it and then send this up to the upper level courts in D.C. But something else might happen in Georgia that would do that. So it's kind of a technical question. But the Supreme Court, I do not envision doing anything on their own. Like they're not going to sua sponte of their own volition do anything. Somebody's got to bring it to them. Great question though, Jeegum. And thanks, John, for clipping that for us. We got Wells Mortensen over on Locals. Welcome. Says, hi, fresh from vacay spent over in Czech at the Noir Film Festival. Here's a question. Czech variants, NPR, New York Times, all MSM are hellbent over DNC talking points. No money in the world, let alone George Soros, could pay for this bend over. What gives? What propels the people exposed to all major propagandas like Germany, Russia, US throughout the 20th century to act all cultish with eyes blind over the issues that affect everyday prices in exchange for a publicly stated ideology checkmark? Wow. This is a great question, and I think it's pretty deep. I would say that a lot of it probably boils down to nature versus nurture, how people are raised, tribalism. I think people are genetically predisposed to join tribes. I think that there are probably some genetic dispositions between certain people and what they believe. I think that there are certain genes probably that literally will help guide what a person, how a person is structured. Are they more trustworthy or trusting or less trusting? Do they, have a natural propensity to listen to authority, or are they naturally repelled from authority? And I think that's part of nature. It's part of nurture. And I think there's probably DNA that's involved in that. So here's one thought. Like, I was once listening to a talk. I forget where this came from, but I heard it in Genius Network, which is where I'm a part of. And somebody gave this talk, why is America naturally so entrepreneurial relative to some of the other countries in the world? Why does America seem to be so, adventurous and so willing to take risks that other countries maybe are not? And I know this is a broad generalization, but the thesis is because a lot of people who actually came over to the United States had a natural propensity to be risk takers. Okay, everybody who got on a boat and left Europe and came over to the United States, they had to take a pretty big risk. So they're almost kind of like psychos, right? Almost kind of like nuts. Like, what are you, nuts? You're getting on a boat to travel across an ocean that we don't even know what's on the other side. There's like huge groups of strange people that are going to kill you. For what? For liberty? What are you talking about? What the hell's liberty? For freedom? You guys are crazy. Good luck over there, right? So like there's just this natural filter that caused a certain type of person to get on a boat and go. And you might, you see that same pattern in different environments around the world, and different cultures and different, major origin points might cause people to fall into certain categories. And then people get into those categories, and then they have the sunk cost fallacy, right? They say, oh, I'm a Democrat. I can never change being a Democrat because I've got my friends who are Democrats, my families are Democrats. We all get together at the dinner table and complain about this. And many of these people make this a part of their lifestyle now, right? They are perpetual victims. Their entire basis for existing is to save the planet now, right? And they block roads, or their entire basis is to go and awaken the youth to know who they are at age 2 and identify their sexual proclivities at age 4 or whatever, right? And they're in that category. And so once you're in that category, you sort of create momentum and it starts to snowball. They end up hanging out with themselves. They create these little bubbles that they can never escape. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Test, 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 test. We got some audio? All right, we're back. Okay, so the power went out over here. Everything just shut off. And my settings are still not back. You can see everything just, even the lights are off. 1 second. Trying to restore some settings. All right. Okay, so are we still over on... Are we still live over on the other platforms? I can't believe it's still going. I know Locals is still going. YouTube is still going. The whole computer, everything reboot. And we're still back. It still let me come back. That's pretty amazing. All right. So that's what happened. Now I do need to log in over here. All my screens are off. Yikes. All right. Now you can see, now I got to figure out what to do with the background back there. I don't even know what the heck we were talking about. Where were we? What were we talking about? No, that's too much. All right, we'll go with that for now. What were we talking about? I don't even have any idea. All right, so I think we were going through some super chats, right? And we definitely don't want to lose those. And so let me get those queued back up. Thanks everybody for hanging with us as we are navigating. Were those was that the FBI? Did they hit my power, my breakers out there? Punks? Punk FBI agents? All right, let's see. We are grabbing up those donos and we're going to get right back on track in the blink of an eye. Yes, I know where we were. We were talking about Wells Mortensen and Wells Mortensen's comment and about the tribalism that exists in America. All right, so thank you, Wells. Great comment on that one. Wells also says, by the way, can wholeheartedly recommend Deadline USA 1952 with Humphrey Bogart for a fresh take on newspapermanship. Golden times and what a message. From Wells Mortensen. I've not heard of that one. Deadline USA for a fresh take on newspaper. Is that the one where the guy's screaming at the I want you to get mad. That one? Is that guy? I don't remember that one. Anyways, thank you, Wells. I appreciate you being here. Quantum Thug Life says, smash that like button. Smash that like button, baby. I appreciate that, Quantum. Thank you guys for hitting that like button. This one is over from Rob on Rumble. Says, if Big Fani and Alvin or any others are taking money from the DOJ, Jack Smith, then this should all be shut down. Thanks, Rob, as always. Well, I think they're taking money from, well, certainly that, but I think they're taking money from the federal government. Now, I think that there's also rumors that they're colluding. Okay, so Fani, there's rumors that she's colluding with Jack Smith, and we definitely know that Jack Smith had meetings with Biden. So, the political prosecution from Joe Biden, that's definitely on record. There's also rumors that Jack Smith called Fani and told her what to do, too. Rob says, 2016, 2020, 2024 are all federal elections. Shouldn't, therefore, all of these cases should be held at federal level and not state? So, yeah, but the problem is these criminal charges are about stuff that is, they're saying are violations of state law. So, 2016, that's the Alvin Bragg case. Yeah, the Alvin Bragg case is they're alleging state crimes there. So that's the case where it's involving Stormy Daniels. 2020, any cases there are involved, Fani saying that those are Georgia laws. She's referencing Georgia RICO. Now, they tried to remove it in the Alvin Bragg case to federal court. The judge declined. And they also are doing that right now in Georgia. And so we'll see what the judge says about that. But it's based on the law that comes in, not necessarily the election. Thanks, Rob. Another one from Michael Allen Hughes says, the Trojan horse in all these cases will be people on the jury who will sympathize with Trump as a victim of unjust prosecution. Okay, so Michael Allen Hughes is saying if there are African Americans on the jury, maybe they will sympathize with him. Maybe, perhaps, Michael. Could be true. Salty Sarge says, another strongly worded letter. Great. I wonder if they will ever find any wind in their sails, or is this just another exercise in luffing it back to shore? Because all along, they needed a bigger boat. From Salty Sarge over on Rumble. Tim the Mechanics on Local says, those redacting the email are part of the collusion. They have no authority to alter it. Drag them before Congress. Demand to show their authority to alter. Retracting is altering the records. From Tim the Mechanic. Good to see you, Tim. And yeah, I'm sure that they're overly redacting the documents. And, wow, Joe Biden said to Hunter, bring me $80,000 for whatever. Oh, that sounds like it's a private financial record. Redacted. Thanks, Tim. Curtis says, thanks, Rob and mods. Shout out to the mods. Thank you, Curtis. 14 months. Woo! Man, Curtis, been a member for 14 months. How fun. Thanks for being a member. And thanks for shouting out our incredible mods. Rosie's here, says, I'm going to okay 5,400 in the next lottery. Probably play. I'm going to play 5,400 in the next lottery. Probably do well. You never know. Let us know if you hit it. Wells says, are our tips getting answered on this stream, or am I late for the local special? We got it here today, Wells. Yeah, thanks for asking. And we're still going to go to our members only after party here in a short minute. We've also got Passport Bro in the house, modding down the fort for us. Thank you, Passport Bro. I appreciate you, bro. We've got this one from Camp Whore Dance. Camp Whore Dance. Good to see you. Thank you for the tip here today, Camp Whore Dance, and for being a member on our YouTube membership. We've got Salty Sarge on Rumble says, Hunter Biden had an unedited version of the National Assessment of Ukraine from U.S. intelligence on his laptop. Just like Joe Hunter is a plagiarist and trading in on national secrets. I definitely remember that email from Hunter. that felt very strange. It felt like he was copying and pasting somebody who was somebody with intelligence who actually wrote a report. Yeah. We got Jigum. Thank you, Jigum, is here. Says perhaps the reason Congress isn't going after the Biden crime families with guns ablazing is that this pay-for-play behavior and the treasonous backroom deals are commonplace in our government. This net would catch too many fish. Ooh, that's a good analogy. I like that. Yeah. So I think you're probably right about that. And I personally think that I think this is a lot of the reason that everybody's so excited about Ukraine and about endless wars, because they all go like, oh man, this is fishing season. Like, we're going to go get rich. And so if you then try to go see who's doing the fishing, you're going to bust everybody. And so that fisherman is going to get too many fish in return. I think there's, Hillary did it with the Clinton Foundation. So Joe Biden said, well, I'll just do it with Hunter. And they all come up with their little grifts to make money. Wells Mortensen says, can't get Field of Greens here. Plus, I'm on my mom's garden's produce diet anyway. Best kind. So here's a tenner instead. You rock, mister. Thank you, Wells. What a nice comment, Wells. Thanks for supporting us, either through sponsors or just being here. I appreciate you, Wells. Thank you for the tip. And Mom's Garden Produce, man, that sounds like really good. It's hard to compete with Mom's Garden Produce. Thanks for being here, Wells. Great comments, and I appreciate the support. Salty says, Hunter Biden, I think we got that one. Says, Rob, it's a Florida thing. They celebrate before, during, and after a hurricane. Okay. Well, that's good. I didn't know that, and I didn't want to be like, having fun with Florida cakes when they're about to get obliterated. So I just I wanted to tread lightly on that. I wasn't familiar with hurricane culture. We don't have we don't have any hurricane culture here in Arizona. Isaac Bowles says Trump should publicly threaten to run third party to get the GOP to fall in line. This is getting really getting out of control. They might love that. They'd say, oh, perfect. DeSantis is our man. Have a nice run. But I understand what your point. I mean, honestly, we've used this before. I've said that it feels like the Republicans would rather lose the game than have their star player win. All right. It's like a bitter person on a sporting team. We'd rather lose the game than see your friend score the winning touchdown. They'd rather lose. That's the GOP. Rosie Posey says, Rob, I swear, if you had a layman's law conference in Arizona, I'd bet you'd see a lot of locals there. Just a thought. Would be great to meet everyone for real. So I'm definitely thinking about that, Rosie. I think that, one place that they can never censor you, one place that they will never be able to stop you from speaking your mind, one place where we'll be able to connect deeper is in public, in person. Not set up for it yet, but that's a long-term plan. Is to take what we do digitally and bring it from the world of bits into the world of atoms. On the plan. We got Spud says, the left wants publicly funded campaigns. They got their wish through the persecution of Trump. DJT saves bigly money. Well, yeah, so you could cut that both ways. I mean, Trump is coming out of pocket to defend himself on all these cases. That money's not going to campaign resources, but it is obviously getting him a lot of airtime and a ton of attention. And I would imagine that attention just continues, like the mugshot. How much free advertising was that? Thanks, Spuds. Teacher Man says, how many Democrats does it take to screw in a light bulb? None. They prefer the dark. I think that's true. They want to censor you. They want to destroy things. They want to tear everything down. You have a nice, Disneyland. Not anymore. You don't. Not anymore. Now we're going to dress up, men as princesses and stuff like this, and we're going to just wreck everything. Okay. We want to have a conversation with two opposing viewpoints so that we can hash out ideas. Sorry, you don't even get to speak. We'd rather your ideas just be buried in darkness, lest we be outsmarted by your intelligence. Thanks, Teacher Man. B-Man says, where's the RNC? They need to be lawyering up. I don't really know what they're doing. I think that they're very excited about the elections. They want candidates running. But I don't think that they're, I mean, you know, I can't definitely speak to all of their efforts. I don't know if they have a real big response, but I've got two data points. One is Mark Elias, okay? That guy and Democracy Docket, they're filing lawsuits all over the country, and I don't know if the Republicans have a response to that. I don't think they do. The second data point is we covered here on this channel a deep dive by, I forget the organization, but they investigated the charitable giving and the exploitation of IRS rules to create these voter registration groups. And I don't think the Republicans, at least according to that report, have anything in response. Feels like the Democrats are about a decade ahead in that space. So I agree. I would love to see some Zuckerbucks come into the red side, but I don't know where all the red billionaires are. Adesia says, wrong button, Rob. Is that what everything went out? Well says, buy a UPS Fortron in this house. 3 units, all good. Yeah, for the power outage, I don't know if that would have helped at all. My router, the whole house went out. I mean, the whole place. Router went out, cable box went out, computer went out, all the lights went out. So I'd have to keep the router and all the lights and all of it on backup power, which I guess I could do. It's another thing to learn. Sounds fun. It's good advice, actually, UPS. So we could stream in the dark. I like it. If the FBI cuts off the electricity, we'll just stream in the dark. Yeah, baby. I like it. Adesia says goodbye, good night, and good luck. We made it back, Adesia. I'm glad you stuck around. Well says, wow, what an encompassing answer, an all-encompassing answer, Rob. I'm in a good place here. You nailed it. It's a lot of nurture. Imagine one of the sides getting all this for free, the other only for a merit. Slanted battleground. Thanks, Wells. It is slanted indeed. No doubt about it. Yeah, it was a great question. Thanks for letting me riff on that one. True Neutral says, good job, fam, for standing your ground. Feds can't run us off with these cheesy power outage tactics. No way, man. We're coming back. I'm like, all right, reboot. Let's go, baby. Can we, are the tubes still working? And the tubes were still working. Amazing. And I appreciate you staying here and sticking around with us through it. They're not taking us out with a power outage. Give me a break. All right, Jesser Bob says, love the mood lighting. It's a little different right now. We got some green going on, some blue, a little bit of a different vibe. Wells says, lights are awesome now. You look even younger. Buy a UPS. We need more of you. I think that's a power source. And I've looked into that at one point. It's funny. Well says, ROFL, these moments are the greatest. Kudos left and right to everybody for sticking to the chat. Yeah, I appreciate everybody sticking around. I was scrambling back here, and then I forgot that I have certain settings that when everything gets reset, that's why I was back behind there. I was like, is it plugged in? What happened over here? Got to press that button, and then turn this on, and then reboot those things. So I appreciate you sticking with us. Oh, man. Radicy says, locals will always be here for you. We just talked about you while you were hiding from the feds. All right, so I'm busted now. Yeah, it was actually the feds. Salty says, Rob, don't worry about it. Captain Quint had worse days. I'm not sure who that is, Captain Quint. I'm not sure who that is. Yeah, Jeremy says, I saw you walking around. I know, that's part of the show, because I couldn't talk to you. I was like, the mic's not working. Jaws? Is Jaws? Captain Quint? Is Jaws? All right. We got Rosie says, dude, you sure you're not from Pittsburgh? You bounce back like the Immaculate Reception. I can't take any credit for it. I thought for sure I was going to have to restart all the streams and all of it. And no, I just opened up I said, restore everything. And I said, yes, let's go. Go live. And it just all reconnected again. So pretty fortunate. Probably because it happened so fast. I think if I would have waited another minute or two, they would have all timed out. So it worked. NY says, for your EcoFlow Delta Pro battery, you can use it as a UPS and even go camping with it. So that sounds interesting. The power has never gone out before, so hopefully it doesn't happen again. Deadline USA equals, from Wells, says Deadline USA is Humphrey running a newspaper to be sold, which he opposes, as it would kill free speech. What a concept. Yeah. I am mad and I cannot take it anymore. That one is a movie called Network with Faye Dunaway, also a masterpiece. That's right. And that's later, right? I think that's like in the 70s or something. Good clarity on that. Thank you, Wells. Good recommendations. I appreciate it. Rob says, FBI and DOJ and Biden and Hunter are shutting your power off. They're colluding to interfere with our streams, man. John Allen says, Rob, what I love best about you is you make it interesting whenever there were tech issues. You're the best. Thanks for another great stream. Still sending prayers for Bonnie and her daughter, Jen. Thanks, John. Yeah, we're praying for Bonnie and Jen, who are in Nevada right now. And John, we appreciate you modding down the fort for us. And, you know, the tech problems, what can you do? What can you do? Feds are in the tubes. This is one from Rob, and I can't share this link, or I'll let you follow the links on your own. Solution for a divided America. Great short clip, so I'll let you guys check that out on your own. We got this one from Lula Bell Baker, comedian. Says, hey, Rob, check out my breaking news arrested video about the Trump arrest. Y'all better wake up. This is from Lula Bell Baker, comedian. Sounds like a good one. I'll have to check it out, Lula Bell. Thanks for the dono. Thanks for swinging by. Thanks for putting out good work. And I agree, a lot of people do need to wake up. We're pretty woken up here, but you know, a lot of other people do. NY says Biden signed an executive order to have the Alphabet organization do voter drives. So that's Google. That's incredible. I had no idea about that. Thank you, NY. That's a lot, right? That's a lot of powerhouse effort behind that. We got NY says, Rob, getting a few lithium-based solar chargers that function as UPS. The router runs for days on one. The computer, depending on your setup, could last for a day, especially if it's a laptop. So it's not. I've got about just you know, it might look neat behind the screen over here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 monitors, 3 lights, and a camera. The mic is also amped up. I've got a full A10 mini switcher here, which hogs a lot of power. I've got an external sound card with a knob. I've got like I don't know how much it is. So I don't know what it would take to power all of that, but it's an interesting idea. It's definitely not a laptop. I got a lot of wattage coming through here. We got Teacher Man says freedom is a fragile thing and it's never more than one generation away from extinction. And those in world history who have known freedom and then lost it have never known it again. Ronald Reagan, man, that's a great quote. Those who have known it and then lost it have never known it again. And that's a great quote. And that's why I keep saying, man, we're not going back. Like, we have reached a threshold and we codified it in a constitution. It took hundreds of thousands of years to get to this stage of global evolution, such that a living being on this planet has recognized that free speech as a governing feature between people is critical to the human species. We codified it. And that's like a miracle. And then we've got psychopaths who are trying to unwind all of that and take us back to other ages where we never have that threshold. And so that's why I'm fired up about it. That's why I know you're fired up about it. Shout out to Ronald Reagan. And thanks, Teacher Man, for the quote. Rosie says, Rob, when the power went out, what new language did you invent? I don't know. I was kind of shocked. I was like, I might have dropped a profanity or two. I don't know. I might have to donate to the swear jar. Everything went out. I said, oh. You know? And you know when the whole building goes off power, like it's like everything stops. Air conditioning, everything. It was one of those feelings like, oh, great. Salty says, Rob, time to put up solar panels. Another chance to enhance your ladder skills. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I heard solar panels are, well, I suppose I could get some solar panels. It'd be good to prepare for the zombie apocalypse anyways. We got this one from Pan-Seared Ribeye says, Don should have pardoned himself before leaving office. Not a bad thought, along with a bunch of other people. And Fred Pedamonte says, it looks like Peter Strzok again. Get it? Peter Strzok again. But he's using Peter Strzok because that's that guy's last name. You know that little whiner crybaby Peter Strzok? He blocked me on Twitter. What a pathetic loser. What a loser. He's like this tough FBI agent who's like waging war against insurrectionists. I gave him a little bit of a retweet that he didn't like, and he blocks me because he's pathetic. Total wieners. Total weenies. Like, come on. Toughen up. I know you work at the FBI, but you can't even stand a little criticism on Twitter. Big weenie. Wells says, joke's on you, mister. Your PC plus 3 monitors plus accessories could run for hours on a 3000 VA UPS, $600. That's not bad. Also, consider one for extending your freezer's chilling capabilities. No affiliation, Fortron gets me 8 hours on a setup. That best yours, no braggadocio, just tech specs. Oh yeah, Wells, how many screens do you have there, buddy boy? It's funny. Okay, so all right, I guess I gotta get a power supply, man, so this doesn't happen again. All right, good feedback. I really do appreciate that. Yeah, because like I definitely don't want that happening when I'm in the middle of something important, you know, like a live stream. Gosh, power. The tubes, man. The electrical tubes, the internet tubes, all the tubes are just difficult. But all right, we're back. We're back in business. We got power. We're going to finish it up. Let's say hello to our friends on X quickly before we wrap it up on the day. Locals members, we're going to have to do a second live stream because we ran out of time on that one. So hang tight. We'll open up a second feed and we'll hit our after party comments in a new feed. But let's see who is joining us on the X. We got 4 viewers over here and it's still working over there too. Amazing. Oh, see, my cuts are bad too. All right, cuts are bad. And let's see, do we have, oh gosh, I got to do that again. My picture in picture's bad on that one. Hang on. Okay, now we're back. All right, let's see who's over on Twitter. We got Vienti Kiss. We've got Danny McWilliams. V says this should give you about 5 hours. There you go, from Vienti Kiss. Good advice. James Pepper says, remember when the Secret Service got caught with the hookers in Colombia? Yeah. All they need is for Hunter to make a few trips and bring it back to the French connection card. They're all Hunter Bidens. Danny McWilliams says, Rob, give me one reason why I should not prep for the government to take all my rights away if Trump loses. Just one. No, I think that they'll try. They'll certainly try. Fred says it's Rittenhouse's third suit by the same family. Oh, that's what happened with Rittenhouse. Pepper says Chutkan was probably promised a Supreme Court nomination. Vientikis says, note Medhi says that black women are holding Donald Trump accountable for alleged crimes. He used the word alleged. So he's saying black women are punishing Trump for things that haven't been proven. Interesting comment from Vientikis there. We've got Real Life is in the house, says Maine for Trump. Real Life in the house says Maine for Trump over on Twitter. And shout out to our ex-friends. V says, what happens when Biden refuses to leave office? I'm just calling it now. Mark the date. Right. If Maddow is so upset, so petrified that Trump won't leave, Biden's also on the verge of being prosecuted. Maybe he doesn't leave. How about that? All right. So those are from our friends over on X. Thanks for joining us over there. We are going to leave it there. We are going to wrap it up and go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. John McGarvey sending in a nice laughing emoji as we wrap up the show. Thank you, John. But my friends, that is it for us on the day. And so we are going to go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. YouTube friends, if you're a YouTube member, you can join us. Just navigate over to the community tab section on Locals on YouTube. Click the Telegram link and join us over there, or just head over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Also, don't forget to get your Field of Greens courtesy of our friends at fieldofgreens.com. You can save 15% off with code Robert when you check out over there, and we appreciate you supporting our sponsors. Thank you to the mods who mod down the fort every single day. We love our mods. We got the best mods. Shout out to our friend Vienticus Prime, K Bean in the house, Just Cause, Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu, Beyond Geostars, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek, Dog Digger, Donut Mind Me, and John McGarvey, all in the house modding the fort down for us. Shout outs to Sleepy Dog Lee, Geegum Geegum, Nathan, NA10 for modding the fort down. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. And so we are going to leave it there. We will be back here tomorrow to do it all again, hopefully with nice, consistent power. We'll see. But I hope to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. See you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.